Hi guys, welcome to a video discussion. We're going to be talking about the book club. So if you are doing the astrology book club, we are reading You Were Born for This. The book club started last week. We're on week 2 this week. But I didn't want to do a discussion on the first introduction and the chapters because it's kind of like self-explanatory, so it's not really that, I just didn't think there needed to be a discussion for that. Sorry, I need to put some lotion on my hands. They're feeling a little rough. I took my nails off yesterday, so having my fingers soaking in acetone for like an hour really messed up my skin. So just gotta put some lotion on. Okay, so this video discussion, we're going to be talking about chapter 3. Chapter 3 is the sun. So like I said, in the introduction and the first 2 chapters of the book talk about the basics of what your birth chart is. You are supposed to go and print out your birth chart. So it talks about what each of the pieces of the chart mean, the signs, the houses, and just how to even look up your birth chart to begin with, and basically what you need to get your chart. So that's covered in the first week. So this week we are reading about the sun. I already finished this week's chapter, so let's get into it. So go ahead and open your books up to chapter 3, the sun. Now, the way that I approached this chapter and will be approaching the next couple chapters is I'm going to be reading the material that pertains to my chart individually. So you can go ahead and go back and read all of the other stuff. Like, I'm not reading about any of the other sun signs. I can always go back to that and do that, but I'm really only focusing on me right now, which is, I kind of feel like that's probably the best way to approach this book if it's your first time reading it, is go through your chart. Get used to your chart. Get used to your signs, especially if this is the very first time that you guys have ever seen your birth chart. If this is the first time you've ever seen, the whole map of your chart. Because it's going to be super exciting for you guys. So, I believe it's in chapter 2, Chani, I think it's Chani or Chani, I think it's what it is. She tells you to go to her website. So you go to her website and you plug in all of the pieces to get your chart, which is your birth date, your date of birth, the time of your birth, the location of your birth, and you plug it all in and you're going to get your birth chart. Okay, so you can print it out. It comes with obviously a picture of your chart. It also comes with some pages of information about your personal chart. Okay, so you're going to want to print out, I printed out everything, so it's about a total of 6 pages to look at. Print it all out because I find that it's super helpful to just resort back to your chart and your information, and you already have it with you while you're going through the book. Because the way that the book is laid out is you're going to be it's going to go through your sun sign first, and it's going to not just talking about your sign being in, like for me, Pisces. It's also going to talk about the aspects of your chart, which means the other planets and how they correlate with your sun. And so when you have your whole thing printed out, you have all of that information and you don't have to keep looking up your birth chart over and over again. So I recommend printing it out once you map it out on her website. Print out your chart. I even printed out a second copy of the actual chart itself, because a fun activity in the second chapter was to put together your own sacred, your little sacred space, or your little birth chart altar. So basically she pretty much wants you to become as familiar with your chart as possible. And so having more of like a witchy perspective or like a metaphysical, spiritual perspective, we like to have focal points, and that is also known as your altar or your sacred corner or your space. And so I actually came up with my own. I'll try to figure out how I could plug in. I don't know if I could plug in a photo in the video itself, but maybe in the description box I will put a link to the picture. But if you guys are following along in the book club, I posted a photo of it on my Facebook private group as well as my Instagram. So go check out my Instagram, scroll down a little bit, and then you'll see my Pisces little altar. Really, really fun. It was a lot of fun to put together. It was a lot of fun. And I still have it up because she recommends that you keep it up the entire study of this book. So lots of fun, super excited about that. Sorry if I keep looking over here. I have a chicken pot pie in the oven, so I just want to make sure that it doesn't burn, although it's supposed to cook for like 60 minutes, so I think we'll be okay. So the sun is your life's purpose, you guys. The sun is your life force, your life purpose. I highlighted it, so I went through and I highlighted a couple things that really stuck out to me. It's the center of our physical system. It is the origin. The sun is how you shine. The house that your sun is the area of life in which you need to shine. So your sun sign tells you how you shine. How do you stick out from the crowd? How are you, right? Your sun sign is who you are. So for me, my sun is in Pisces. So how I shine is the traits of Pisces: mystical, a dreamer, creative, emotional, sensitive, in touch with reality, not so much. An escapist, super, super sensitive, moody. We're high, low, like on a daily basis. And then a whole bunch of other things, other traits about Pisces. And so in the next square, in the next page, I'm having a hard time communicating, and it's because Mercury is going retrograde in like a couple days. So, and Mercury is in my sign, is in the sign of Pisces as well, and just I'm just like scatterbrained. So anyways, okay. So the next page of the chapter, this is where you're going to start writing in all of your information. Okay, it's backwards on the camera. I don't know if it flips back around when I put the video up, but yeah. So this is on page 39. So this is why it's important to get your chart information, because you're going to kind of plug it in. So and then you're going to figure out, so what is your sun sign? What house is it? So my sun is in the 10th house, and that is the house of career. So the house is the area in life in which you need to shine. For me personally, I need to shine in my 10th house, my house of career, the public eye, everybody else's views of me. So it's really interesting that came up, because if you take a look at your own personal life compared to what you will find out about yourself in your birth chart, you'll start to see things click. So for me, not talking about astrology related, but for me, my entire life, at least from the time that I was old enough to have a job, I have always been the worrywart about, I thought I had to have a 9-to-5 job. I thought I had to have this much money to be successful. I had to do this, I had to do that. Money and work and finding the dream job has always been the struggle for me. And so the fact that my sun sign is coming into my 10th house of career, and that's how I have to shine and stand out, it's a challenge. It's literally the challenge. But the cool part about that means that the way that I shine, the way that I stand out will show in my work, right? So it's kind of funny that that came up because, you know, my library, my history of work is pretty much library related. And I feel like I stood out quite a bit in my different library jobs, being the oddball in the mix, you know. But then it's like the whole career took a change, you know, with Cackling Moon and me working from home now and stuff. So it's my Pisces traits, that whole eclectic desire for work to be different, not just a 9 to 5, you know. I wasn't happy with a 9 to 5. And so all of that made so much sense. And then the last part is the planets in aspect to your sun. So meaning the planets that are talking to your sun sign within your chart. So you have your sun, mine is in the 10th house. These are all of the other planets. How are these planets talking to my sun? And so that is who is influencing your ability to shine. And so throughout the book, you're going to find out all of that. So, you know, for me, and for example, all of these planets that are all in Pisces, this is telling me how, you know, those planets are kind of complementing me. And then the ones that are off to the side here, these are more of my trouble planets, my squares, right? And then if there's anything opposing me, which is to the opposite, which I don't have anything opposing me. So you're gonna learn all of that in chapter 3. Don't worry if you've never even looked at your birth chart before. This book is like, literally, you guys, it's such a dream for beginners in astrology. And it's just as good for those of you who have been learning astrology, and because I've been learning astrology for a couple years now, so I've seen my chart multiple times, and then it's good. I think it's still good for people who have been veterans in the astrology world for years and years and years. So it's such a good book. So then it goes into like, you know, the sign that is in. So then you're gonna go through the book and find, you know, which sign is your sun sign. So for me, I went straight over to Pisces, which is at the very end. So I have all my highlighted, you know, things, my little bits and pieces about Pisces that I highlighted. And then the next part of this is the houses. So you're going to identify which house your sign is in, and then she goes and talks about it in detail. So for each house. So for me, I went straight to the 10th house and highlighted. And the cool part about this book is that after every section, there's questions. So she asks reflective questions that you can write about to, you know, kind of like journal about the stuff that you just read. So I did that actually. This is my reflective questionnaire, like my little thing here. So like one of the questions asks, you know, what is a strength with your sign, with your sun sign? And I wrote my sensitivity as a strength, my ability to intuit people in my daily encounters as well as my readings. So being a Pisces, I'm very naturally intuitive. Pisces are very known to be very intuitive and psychic and whatnot. And I feel like that helps out when it comes to my connecting with people in readings and whatnot. Like I'm naturally intuitive, I'm naturally psychic. It's just something that is second nature to me, and so it's a strength. Also my ability to connect on deeper levels with people, and my romantic relationships are always strong. Pisces likes to put everything into romance, into their relationships. Although there is also definitely a toxic thing about Pisces too, but I'm talking about the strengths. And then, okay, so then there was a bit about like, because my Pisces is in the 10th house and whatnot, how do I deal with other people's emotions, you know? And so I put large crowds and confined workspaces overwhelm me, picking up on negative people, so I can sense people, like if I've never met you before, but I have like a first impression of you, almost always to the T. I just know if somebody's going to be worth my time or not. I just have that sixth sense. I kind of think of it as a curse. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time, because There's times where I've met somebody and it's like, I want to give them a chance, but I just know deep down that they're not the right person. I also put that as a Pisces, I need space. I need my alone time, my time to meditate, my time to just kind of clear my head. I also wrote down no touching during sleep. I don't like to be touchy when I sleep. And I'm really, you know, I need cleanses, like maybe not so much a daily cleanse. I guess like a daily cleanse for me as a Pisces would be my meditating or looking at ASMR videos at the end of the night. But I definitely do need to make sure that I am in some kind of a cleanse at least once a month, due to me doing readings and connecting with people energetically. So then I also wrote down about the 10th house. So I want to read about that because, okay. So for the 10th house, one of the reflection questions is, what public role do you occupy that helps you feel a sense of purpose? And so I wrote down my Instagram, my YouTube channel, having an audience on social media. I always have someone who is watching me or watching what I do and say. So even before I started with Cackling Moon, like back in the day when I had a MySpace, or back in the day, I always had some kind of social media. So it was Tumblr, it was MySpace, it was, I even had a live journal. I don't know if you guys remember that, or if that was like too far back for some of you. But back in like 2000, like in the early 2000s, I had a live journal. I also had a dead journal. There was like both of them. Basically, it's like an online diary. And I had quite a bit of a following with my live journals. I remember I just had like random people I never even met who would just love to read my journal entries, and like they would comment, and I was involved in different communities. On MySpace, I was pretty much like, my MySpace was pretty much like friends and stuff, but I always had like an online persona or an online audience of some sort. And so I think that's why coming into the whole modern realm of like Instagram and YouTube and stuff, that feels more natural to me, because back in the day when I was like 14 years old, I was still like, had a social media account and I still had somewhat of a following, you know? So I guess that kind of explains with me with my son in the 10th house of not just career, but also like the public eye. It's natural, like it comes natural to me to have an audience. It comes natural to me to have people in my business and being like online and being, you know, available to people and stuff, and having people on their eyes on me and whatnot. Like I'm an open book kind of a thing, you know? So that's just natural to me. So that was really interesting to learn about myself. That's why I love this book so much, because it's like you learn so much about yourself. So then after you go through the houses, then you're going to start talking about the aspects. So there's different aspects. There's the sextiles, the sextiles, the trines, the squares, the oppositions, and the conjunctions. Don't worry, in the book, it will go through all of that. So it'll teach you what those mean and how to identify it. And then also, if you print out your birth chart, you'll have a cheat sheet for all of that. So one of the pages, like this one, talks about like my aspects for my sun, the aspects to my moon. So you have it listed here so that when you go through the book and like do the worksheet and stuff, you'll already have it here. So that's why I recommend just print it out. It's easier. It just makes your life so much easier. So then you'll go in, and like what I did is like, so for example, for sextile, do I have any planets that are sextiling my sun? And I do. So according to my chart, my little handout thing, my Neptune is sextiling my sun. So then it'll just go in a quick little blurb of what that planet's influence is to you, and all of that. So I love it. It's just super easy, super straightforward. I'm telling you guys, like I've read astrology books that are so dry and they're just so boring. This one is not boring. I flew through this so quickly. So for the next one is squares. So squares are technically like a challenging aspect. So any planet that squares your sun sign is going to be a challenge. And I have Mars, Saturn, and Uranus that square mine. And I wrote a little side note here because I had a reality check when I was like learning about this. I wrote down, I have deep-rooted anger. Feeling life always throwing obstacles before me. So even before I started learning about my chart, I remember telling, like, I think it was like my husband when we were dating. I remember telling him how I feel like nothing ever comes easy to me. Like, I always observe my friends or family getting what they want super easy. At least from my perspective, okay? Because I don't know what's truly going on in their life. But from my perspective, I always felt like everybody else just got everything so easy and I always had to struggle, or I was always the late bloomer, or I was always like finishing last, right? So when you look at it from an astrology point of view, the squares, like the square aspects, which is basically planets that are 3 signs, I think it's 3 signs away from you, which for me, so my sun is here. My sun is here in Pisces, and then a square of it is these planets. And that's my Uranus, Saturn, and Mars. And Saturn, the planet of Saturn is all about everything. Like Saturn puts a stop to things. Saturn like creates obstacles. Mars is your motivational planet. And then Uranus is your planet of rebellion. And fucking imagine all three of those energies squaring who I am, right? Is basically saying like, yeah, you're going to have blocks, obstacles. You're going to have challenges with rebellion. So naturally, like I always want to rebel, but then I always want to do the right thing. Like I'm always in that polarity. And then my fucking Mars, like squaring my sun. I feel like that aspect, like Mars and Saturn squaring my sun, is just like a recipe for me being plus size, a recipe for me being like my emotional eating, you know, my weight issues and whatnot. I feel like it's written in the stars. And then I have a moon in Cancer, which is just like screaming emotional eater, you know, like it was destined for me in the stars for me to be plus size. Not that there's anything wrong with being plus size, but when I look at it, my toxicities with food, it's like in my chart. So it was just really, really mind blowing. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't be going into the moon yet, but I started reading about the moon chapter today. So that's like fresh in my mind. But anyways, you will probably have revelations about yourself. So I highly recommend, if you're not into writing in your book, because I know some people just cringe when they see that I do that, have like notes so you could take notes, because especially if this is your guys' first time going into this, you're gonna be so wowed, like so wowed. So yeah, so I wrote other notes and stuff, but I'm not gonna like sit here and talk to you about my life. I just wanted to kind of have a quick discussion about the chapter. So then you go into the conjunctions, you go into all of the other aspects, and then that's the end of the chapter. And then you dive into the moon next. So I really, really, really enjoyed this book so far. I freaking love it. I would definitely recommend this book to anybody and everyone. And the thing about this book, though, it only talks about the sun, moon, and rising signs. So that's literally like the top 3. That's like the top 3 things that you can learn about yourself astrologically, right? But then you got to remember there's a whole other, there's so many other planets, so many other things to learn about with your chart. But this book is like step 1. So if I was recommending to anybody who's learning astrology, I would definitely from now on be recommending this book, because it literally taps into your top 3. Once you know this about your top 3, you will have so much more insight and information about yourself that you didn't think you needed. So yeah, so I totally recommend it. And I hope that you guys, those of you guys who are following along with the book club, I hope that you guys are enjoying it. I hope that you guys are learning a lot about yourself and that you are just having so much fun. I know I am, and I'm going to continue reading about the moon. I'll probably be done with the book way before the actual book club is over, but by me being ahead of the schedule, it kind of helps me to be more motivated to like put a video out. So this video is talking about what we're reading about this week. If you guys have any questions, please leave them below in the comment section. If you guys have any insights or anything you want to add about the chapter, if you're reading along, or if you want to join the Facebook group, I'll put the information in the description box. But I want to hear your thoughts. And if you want to share, if you already know your signs, share in the comments below, what is your sun, moon, and rising sign, and what do you love most about them? So let me know. Let's talk astrology down below, and I will see you guys next week for the next video discussion. Bye, loves.